Okay, I've got another project over here that I'm going to take a look at. We've got a different kind of creature, I guess we'll call it, and it's got different characteristics. So this creature has some, well, let's bring out the layer menu. Let's bring that out and let's see where we're at. So we've got several layers here. We have our reference image. So there's our reference image. And let's see, this is on layer 4. So I'm going to unlock layer 4. We're going to select that and work on layer 4. Okay, so we've got some, we've got a circle here, which is fine. If we were going to fill this with a color, it is a closed path, so we could easily go over here to the fill menu and choose some sort of a color, and it's going to fill in the way we would expect it to. So that's working well. And then we've got this one in here, and if I choose a color for that one, that's also working well. So that's sitting, this object was created after this larger circle, so that means it's sitting on top. If we wanted to push that to the back, we'd go to right click, choose arrange, and choose send to back. But we don't really want to do that, so let's Command Z or Control Z if you're on a PC to undo. And let's just go back to where we started, because we're going to focus on these objects here. So I don't know what these are. It's like the, inside of some kind of a cell or something like that. They're kind of like worm-like things. And we could see when we select these that there's a path in the middle and that there's a stroke applied, and that stroke is at the default setting. If we pull out our stroke menu and we choose show options, we can see that the alignment of the stroke is in the center, meaning that it's distributed evenly. That weight is distributed evenly on either side. So it's a 7-point weight of the stroke. That means 3.5 points on either side. I think that's fine for this. Since these are organic, kind of natural objects, we can see that the cap by default, I mean, this is just the default that Illustrator will create these in, is kind of like this squared off or flat shape. And for some kind of a living creature, these kinds of organic shapes, maybe it's better to have this round cap that looks a little more natural, like a worm-like kind of a thing. You can see over here, this is a separate one that's just kind of overlapping. It's not connected. You see how that's not connected? It's just like kind of a separate shape. And then we've got this sort of weird, to me, it's kind of an awkward thing here. If we round that, I don't know, it just looks a little bit better. I mean, better, when I say better, I'm talking about like for this particular type of organic, microscopic creature, which I guess these things are. Let's try this one. You can see that these are all different, and there's something kind of weird going on here. Let me look at that. So this kind of comes around and makes a loopy thing, and look at that. So that's, I would call that like a, I don't know, that's sort of like twisted or folded over. I wouldn't call that an ideal kind of a thing. What I would do is it's really not affecting the overall shape of the path very much. It's just kind of making the end look twisted around. So I would just fix that by rotating this and straightening it out. And then we can put a round cap on that. Now these are supposed to overlap, so let's go ahead and just do that. Also this part here. So you can see that there's like this, even though this is a curved path, when we put a heavy stroke on it, it does make this point where it looks kind of like it's a sharp angle or kind of like folded over itself. Maybe if we try this corner, this like rounded corner join, it's called. Let's see what happens if we apply that also. No, that actually didn't do anything. Okay, well, I mean, we're just experimenting here and seeing what works and what doesn't. Maybe we'd want to just straighten that out by adjusting the handle on this path. So, we want to make sure that we edit our paths to make them look as kind of natural and graceful as we can. Here's another instance where this sort of kind of like um, a sharp angle is occurring, even though our path is technically our actual path is rounded, but because we have a wide stroke on there and this angle is making that stroke look look angled. So, how do we fix that? I just have to experiment with what do I do here? I guess we pull this out. I think we can get rid of this. This is kind of like making it sort of it's sort of like a extra thing here. So let's just simplify this path. I'm going to delete this anchor point. Now we don't want to just press delete. If we select that and press the delete key, then we've got a problem. It actually breaks our path. Unless you actually wanted to do that. I mean, that's an option. Maybe you wanted to separate those paths there. But in this case, we want to keep this path all a single smooth path. So we want to go to the pen tool and choose delete anchor point, and then just click on that and delete it. It does change the shape of our path somewhat, but we can go back and edit that. And I think what we want to do is we want to sort of, we just want to get rid of this kind of, this part here. So it's just a matter of making adjustments. Here's another point where there's maybe I'd say this is an extra anchor point that's kind of putting a kink in our, I do see that the object below it, it's maybe a little bit unusual, but let's get rid of that. Let's try to make a smoother curving path. Let's just get rid of that. Maybe we get rid of that one too. It does change the shape of our path, but ultimately I think we're going to end up with something that looks smoother and more graceful, maybe, or more natural. All right, so here too, we could go through here and really fix this up. Now, I'm not going to go through and do the entire thing because we can see this whole thing has kind of got some issues like this. Like that's kind of a kink. Just let's go ahead and delete that anchor point just for the fun of it, to see what's going on, if it makes it look nicer. Yeah, it does. It changes the shape and direction, but we can always, that's the great thing about these handles, is that we can go back and fix that. See, we can make it smoother looking than it looked before. All right, so anyway, that's how you would go, and you could iron out this path and make it look a little bit more graceful or natural. But now what happens if we want to apply a color to this thing? Right now it's all black, so that's fine. But let's say we want to beautify it, right? We want to make it sort of pretty. We're going to apply a color. So these are strokes applied to a path. So I'm going to click on the stroke swatch here to bring that forward. I can double click on it and I can choose a color. Alternatively, I could choose some swatch color. In another demo, I showed that you have some options under color. If you go to this color menu, where show options, and no, that's the wrong one. I actually want the swatch menu. That's it. Swatch menu. Go to click on this little. Let's delete that. Click on this little sub menu here, or click and hold on it so that you can see this sub menu. You can open up a swatch library like I mentioned before, and you can choose something. This is another thing that you can actually just check out what these different swatch libraries have, what kind of colors they have in them. So that's pretty cool. Maybe I'll apply one of these colors. So let me just grab one of these. I can drag it over to the stroke. That didn't make a big difference as far as color for more contrast, so you can really see what it did. Let's try this blue. Okay, so we could do it that way, or we could change the color just by dragging directly on the path. So there's different ways. We can actually, I think we could just click on a swatch. Yeah, we can just click on a swatch as long as we have our path selected. So that's a really easy way to apply color. So there's multiple ways to do things. And again, it just is a matter of experimenting and trying things out. If there's something you don't like, you can always hit Command Z or Control Z and undo. Go back to where you were before. All right, so what we've got here are several paths that are not connected. And this makes it a little bit more difficult to edit. Like if we want to change the color, we have to we have to select all of these and change the colors all. Maybe we could group them together, which is fine. We could do Command G to group, or if you right click on it and well, I've already grouped it, I could ungroup it. There's those kinds of options. And then once it's grouped together, I could just change the color all at once. Okay, but maybe we want to apply a gradient to this, and how does that work on a gradient? So if we apply a gradient, let's say we want this to be a gradient. I'm going to just put a nicer color in there than black. And then you can see this is sort of the effect that we're getting. And this is where we're starting to see that this could be a problem, where these are all separate strokes, right? And none of them are connected. And then we have some issues where there's overlap, and we can now start seeing it because there's different shade, different hues of color overlapping each other. So why don't we simplify this? We're actually going to take this stroke. Let me Command Z all this. Let's going back to black. Okay, we're back to where we started. We've got these several separate strokes, or paths, I mean, with strokes applied, right? And they're all separate, and they're kind of overlapping, and they might be kind of hard to work with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to convert these paths with a stroke applied. I'm going to convert this whole thing to a closed path with a fill applied. And the way to do that is to go to the Object menu and choose Expand. And then just hit OK. And when we do that, you'll notice that the pink highlighted path went from being right in the center here to being on either side. And you might also have noticed that instead of the fill being none and the stroke being black, it is now the opposite, where the fill is black and the stroke is none. So it converted this from a path with a stroke applied to a closed path, or like an object with a fill inside of it and no stroke. Okay, now if we applied a stroke to this also, you could see you could, and you get some interesting results. But notice how it makes the shape wider, right, than it was before. So actually, let's hit OK. Wait a minute, what do we have here? Oh, do I have, let's see. All right, well, what was I doing here? Let's put a stroke on there. Okay, so let's put a really thick one. You can see that if I put a if I put a 9-point stroke on these paths here, you can see how it really makes it really changes the character of what I've got going on here. And generally, that's not really something that's desirable. You probably don't want to do that. So first of all, you're going to want to choose some stroke weights that make some sense, that preserve the shape of your object that you created. But you might also want to align the stroke to the inside, so that the total width of your object does not get wider. You can see what happens when it's aligned to the center. Part of that stroke is outside of the edge of the path, and it's like making things wider. You could also try aligning it to the inside. Or actually, this is aligning it to the outside. This is aligning it to the inside. There's some big difference between these different options. So anyway, but again, let's say we have this path applied here, and then we've got this. What our goal is to make this whole thing one single object. So I'm in the process of undoing some things. I'm back to the point where I expanded this stroke to become an object with a fill and no stroke. All right, let's do that to these other ones. So there's one here. Let's do the same thing. Let's select that, go to Object, Now this says expand appearance, and the reason it says expand appearance is I believe is because um, we changed the option. We changed this cap to be rounded in our stroke menu. So it's just giving us, we just have one more step to do. We're going to hit expand appearance, and then we're just going to go back and choose expand. So it could be that you might have to do these two different actions in order to get your stroke to convert into a closed path. And you can see what it just did. It converted to a closed path. The paths are on the outside. Now we have a black fill and a stroke of none instead of a black stroke on there. So now we have two closed paths here overlapping. Let's do this one now. There's one in here. Let's do that. Let's go to expand, and then this one. Now this will probably say expand appearance because we modified this a bit, but let's see. Yep, expand appearance. So if you get that, just go again and go to expand. You could tell if it worked because this path that's right in the center, when you expand this correctly, it will move to the outside. Keep your eye on that as I choose expand. Watch what happens. And watch the stroke and the fill reverse each other. Okay? So now we've got these closed paths with fills on them. Since we have closed paths with fills, we can join these together. We can unite them using the Pathfinder. So I'm going to go to Window and choose Pathfinder. And I've got some different options here. One of them is Unite. One of them is minus front. You've got little icons that show you what the result of clicking on these buttons will be. So I'm going to select, this object is already selected. I'm going to hold Shift key and the Shift key and select this other object. I want to unite these two into one single closed path. I'm going to choose Unite. And now you see how these have become a single path with one fill on that. So let's do that to this. Now that we have this as a single object, I'm going to hit Shift and choose that one. You see how it's overlapping here. If I choose Unite, it becomes part of this other object. Now let's do the same here. We want to just select both of these, Unite, okay, and now we have a single object with no fill and, no stroke and filled with black. So now if we want to apply a color to it, we can just click color swatch and we'll make sure that, well, I wanted to fill it. So let's put this at none and let's bring fill to front. Okay, so I'm going to fill it. See, I can just click one of these swatches and fill it with color. If I wanted to apply a stroke and choose a color, let's choose something contrasting. It's kind of hard to see. I'm just trying to choose something that you could see. I don't know. Let's hide this reference image and we'll see it a little better. There we go. Okay, so look how there's a stroke that goes around, it goes around the entire object. We were having problems with that before when these were separate objects. Okay, so now let's say that we wanted to do something like a gradient. Let's click on gradient. Actually, let's do that on the fill. Let's make sure if we want to affect the fill, we want to click on the fill swatch to bring that to the front. So whichever swatch is in the front, meaning it's overlapping the one below it, that's the one that we're working on. If we want to affect the stroke, like change the color, we'll click on that, bring it forward. If we want to work on the fill, we'll click on that, bring that forward. So now I have the fill ready to go. I have my object selected. I go to gradient and I'm going to click in there and apply that gradient. And again, that's kind of an ugly color because what it's doing by default is it's making one side of the gradient the color of the fill that I had applied, and then the other side of the gradient is black because by default the gradient's going to be black and white. So as we can change this little, we can move the slider to affect the way the gradient behaves. Something else to experiment with, we can move this little center point to kind of change the position of along this gradient of where one color starts blending. Okay, so there's a lot of options here, but let's just make this a prettier color than this black color. Let's just try something else. How about that? Oops. Wait a minute. Okay, so what I want to make sure is if I just, what I want to do is I want to drag that color, I want to drag a color into this little paint well here. There we go. Okay, now we got it. So we want to, if we want to change the colors on either end of the gradient, we can click and drag our color swatches over into there. See how that changes? Okay, so for something like this, you see how smooth that gradient is compared to the way it looked before when these were all separate pieces. And then maybe we want to put a radial blend on that. Radial gradient. And then we can experiment with things. How does that work? Just experiment. Play around with it. There's all kinds of things you can play with. You can even play with the opacity. But anyway, that's how you would take some strokes that have, that's how you would take some paths that have strokes applied and join them together into a single object that you can manipulate smoothly and apply color, gradients, strokes, and so that it looks clean and aesthetically pleasing.